talk about some of your blades, and I've seen some of them. They're badass looking. Tell me about the different types of blades you have. I know you have a couple blades that were featured in the terminal list, and let me know how did that come to be?
Well, see, behind me, no. I'm very passionate about carrying a blade. And when I was in the military, it really started for me being like, I never found a blade that was perfect for carrying in combat and then going to conceal. So that's why I built the double-edged Dynamis blade. You know, I built that blade to be the perfect carry combat to concealed blade. Everything was kind of built off that mindset. We all have different hands. We all have different, applications we want to use. I do not build folders. Do I carry a folder? Sometimes I do for opening up boxes and using it as a tool. But my blades that I carry on a daily basis are very specifically for fighting. I carry my blade. This is only going to come out from using it for self-defense. This is the Crusader blade that we just released not too long ago. I put a back hook, cutting hook on there to really deeply grab on from a grappling perspective.
Like a reverse grip you got going?
Yeah, exactly. Most of my fighting that I do is in reverse grip. I think forward grip is important, but reverse grip is what I really work on the most, because most scenarios are going to be in a very close grappling, moving, flanking scenarios. So back cutting and all those things are really important. And I realized that there was a gap out there with people not really building and producing great concealable blades. And that's how our brand got started, was to build the double edge. I partnered up with Daniel Winkler and have since grown that from there. Every blade I build has a specific use. The SMR, for example, this is actually a prototype SMR. That's one of the new ones that's going to come out soon, but it's a shorter and smaller blade. And for me, I'm like, well, you have women out there, you have guys that have smaller frames. Also from a standpoint of being on a beach, now you only have this little hook that's got a bottle opener, a little bit of a cover for action. So I'm looking for these things to be extremely purposeful, extremely functional. But I look at these things as, you're going to pass these down to your family. You're going to pass these down to your boy. That's kind of the rite of passage of my family. The first deer that my kids shoot, they get the Crusader blade. The first time they spear a fish, they get a Neptune blade, a Neptune dive blade.
That's cool.
So it's like, they're waiting. Like every time my boy Leo comes into the office, he stares at his Neptune box and he's just like, someday, I'm going to get my fish someday. And he's just so stoked about that.
That's cool.
So, for me too, it's about building a quality blade that can really be passed down in the family or be given to somebody as a very important gift. We don't spare any expenses. I make everything in the USA. Every single detail that we make is here. And I'm pumped and passionate about it. There's a lot of features that we have. When I first made this sheath, this was a very, very minimalistic in the waistband sheath. And when I was going to build this thing, everybody told me I was crazy because I had no money to build it. I want to say it was like $40,000 or $50,000 for the tool that was going to make this thing. And everybody's like, you're out of your mind. They're like, there's no way you're going to make that back. It ended up being like the primary focal point of our brand because I got rid of all the nonsense and I had it to be ambidextrous. And it's worked extremely well for years, 10 plus years at this point. And it's really helped people understand how minimalistic you can get this, how comfortable it really can be to carry on a daily basis. But everything's made in the USA. I really try to stick to that tier one quality, innovative and cutting edge and connected to reality on every piece of gear we build, every blade we build. And, we have guys running these blades overseas, which is the biggest compliment and gratitude that I have for is that, guys are actually putting this thing to work. They're using the dive blade. They're
depending on them. Yep.
100%. And I just want that to me is the goal, to get the guys that are in the battle every day, that are running our gear, that rely on this stuff, that really, love and appreciate what its use is for.
But it's cool that you have a knife that they can use, when they're deployed, and they can also use in it like a concealed carry capacity, because then you're dealing with commonality of technique. You're not dealing with, I got this knife over here in this configuration, and this knife is a folder and all this stuff. Also folders, everyone carries a tactical folder, but I don't know how many people, I know it's a small percentage, practice drawing that tactical folder, and very few, I believe, could do that under duress. It's just, it takes a lot. So you give yourself an advantage certainly by having a fixed blade knife, and you have training blades that you sell as well, right?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. And so that's important, man. If you have a knife that you're getting to train with, to be able to fight with, having a training version of that is absolutely critical. And that's one of the things that I look for when I'm looking to buy a tactical knife. So that is key. What is your background as far as, is there a particular style that influenced you, a certain knife art, or is it just born all out of practicality and kind of your own experimentation? Or how did you come to do what you do with knives?
Well, it's definitely, the Bruce Lee quote about, taking in all these different skills, cutting away the fat and then, adding what's uniquely yours, for sure. I think we all do that to a certain extent, but we never do anything on our own. And I learned a lot. The benefit of being at the command was that we pick the best in the world and we find who moves and applies the knowledge the best. And we pull I mean, I can't tell you how many combatives people that I worked with. It was probably, I don't know, I'm not even going to try to guess the number, but it was a constant flow of combatives practitioners. There were some courses I went to, I was just like, okay. I'll take that. I'll take that. Like, nah, it doesn't make any sense. That has no application to us. And so we just worked on finding the best guys that applied that stuff. Sayok, Kelly McCann, Lee Morrison, a lot of guys out there that I worked with, that really opened my eyes to some of the techniques that are possible and how to really move. When I started to watch the Sayok guys move with a blade, that's really where I was like, it's like the intentionality of the level of aggression that people recognize in our course. Like, oh, okay, now I know how aggressive I have to be. When I saw those guys move with a blade, I'm like, oh, that's what blade work looks like. And so now you start applying that. I remember the first time that my buddy had a trainer blade and he stuck it right in my neck. It was one of those things where it's like, if you're not used to it as a man, you get pissed off. You're like, whoa, dude, like chill out, but then now I love it. Now you can train me and stick me as hard as you want. And I'm like, I know you're getting a good rep in, so it actually makes you smile. It's a whole mindset shift. And it's also a pride thing too, right? But you're going to be a good bad guy. But I remember he was so intentional with the blade that's what it takes to get good reps in. And that's why you need a trainer. There's no way that I could get good human reps on a moving target with my live blade, right? That's just ridiculous. So now you apply the ability to have a trainer. Now you can really get good reps in and emulate that.
Dealing with an animated resistive opponent. Yeah, I mean, that's awesome.